Welcome to the Heritage Month on Air series. Now we're going to be breaking down all the various conversations, historical incidents that have happened in Ghana's rich history this Heritage Month. Now, Heritage Month on Air series on Citi TV is sponsored by Miss Cookie Spices. No peeling, no blending, just scoop and cook. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll introduce my guest to you and we'll get right into the conversation. My name is David Kweku Sechi. Ago. Welcome back. Now, 2024 is a very significant year because it marks many anniversaries. 100 years in some cases, 150 years in some cases, 180 years in some cases, and 200 years in some cases of various incidents that have happened in our history. Now, historian Kweku Dako Ankra has joined me on the set this morning, and we're going to get right into the conversation. Kweku, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let's begin, and on this episode, we want to talk about the Battle of Nsamankow. Now, you would imagine, or I would imagine, that there's a place called Nsamankow. Is there a place called Nsamankow in Ghana?
Apparently, the place wasn't called Nsamankow. It came out of the battle itself.
Okay.
So it was around the place called Anko or Bonsanso. So from Bonsanso area to the Anko, that was where the war occurred. And because of the nature of what happened for that war to occur, that is why it came to end the name Nsamankow. So the place wasn't called Nsamankow before the war. It got the name after the war.
Okay. So wait, so where from the name? What happened that made that name come up?
So before we get to that, first we need to know what exactly precipitated
triggered the war.
And that is what is of utmost importance to all of us. Okay. So if we are to do that, then we need to go back to Ashanti's intention to have trade on the coast. And so right after the Ashanti nation was founded, with the defeat of the Dangerous in the Battle of Feyase from 1869 to 1700s, the Ashanti earned the right to the territories that were already conquered by Dangerous. And in that regard, Dangerous already had fought wars and gone into this the coastal community. Okay. And Edna or Elmina was then under the sovereignty. So when the Ashantis won the war against the Dangerous, they had direct access to Elmina, where they were receiving the ground rent of the Elmina castle. So
Ashantis were collecting money from the Elmina people?
Yes, because in those days when you win war, you take over your the vanquished person's properties and everything that he earns from in form of tribute and so on. So that is what happened. Okay. So right after that, from the 1870, Ashanti wanted to have direct access to trade with the Europeans. And this was not made possible because of the Fanti middlemen who are in the hinterland and therefore block Ashanti traders from coming. And even if you want to come to the coast, you have to pay tributes. Sorry, a form of money to them before you cross. While others also ensure that they don't allow the Ashanti to trade straight. So as a result, they will get the goods and go and sell them themselves. And this, we see it in the trade points that develop. For instance, Nsamankow trading, the Fosu areas, and so on. So those places became the convergence point for trading. So the Ashantis were not able to come straight to the coast. So that was the kind of thing. So from the period of from 1770s, Ashantis made intentions to come to the coast and even launch war, led by the Drabianian, who was dedicated by the Asantini, to fight and come close. By 1750s, they were not able to reach the coast. So this had been going on. Ashanti has made a lot of skirmishes to come to the coast. And it is also very important for Ashantis because the Ashantis also want direct access to some of the ammunitions which they used in their war of conquest against the other territories. So it was very important for them to get the coastal trade, and the Fantis were becoming a thorn in their flesh. So when the opportunity came in 1807, when the two Asani chiefs, that is Apatoi or Ken Apatoi and then Otibu, who were then co-chiefs of the co-kings of Asim Atadansu, had a problem with Amo Adai of Apimenim. Because of that skirmishes and their disrespect towards the Asante Hene, this led to the Ashanti king sending expeditionary force to the Asin kingdom to arrest this. Unfortunately, these people fled to the coast. And when they fled to the coast, the Asante Hene demanded that they should return these two chiefs to them. But the Fantis were stubborn at the time, thinking that they had the support of the British at the time.
Okay.
What they did not perceive was that they had already become also a thorn in the flesh of the British.
Wow.
And the British governor at the time, Touraine, was someone who was not even kind of in love with the Fantis and the way they do things, because they accused the Fantis of buying the gold and then adulterating it before they sell. Okay, also not allowing British opportunities to go into the interior to get the market. So you see that both sides has some sort of
issues with the
Fantis.
Okay.
So when this issue came and the Fantis harbored the two Asini chiefs and they refused to return, it angered the Asante Hene at the time and also gave him the pretext for the first time to set course to fight the Fantis.
Okay.
So in 1806, they made a move to come to the coast, and for the first time, instead of using all the armies coming through the River Pra and fighting the Fantis, because they have defeated the Achim at the time, and then Accra has also come under the Asante sovereignty, the power. They were able to use some of the Ga warriors, Okai Pesemeku and others, who also have detailed knowledge of access through the coast to fight the Fantis, because all the time Ashantis were in the known of coming through the River Pra. So for the first time, they stationed a lot of army at Accra and others also from the River Pra side. So before the Fantis could send all their armies and then they have left their rear guard, the war started from the Pra area, interiors, and they were fighting. And then others, the king himself also led through Winneba and started fighting on the coast towards the main Fanti land. And this really put Fanti in a real strict position, so that they were not able to mobilize more people enough to even fight. In any case, Ashanti had a large army. In those days, when you want to win war, large army is very critical. Access to firepower is also very critical, and you must have a martial group of people. And Ashantis have this in abundance. They have people coming from the northern territories who they recruit into their army, people they have also already conquered, and their warriors have been incorporated into the army. And the Fantis themselves were not also engaged in war. You know, for a very long time, they've become a mercantile trade because of their location, because of the Atlantic Ocean. They have engaged more in trade rather than engaging in warfare. So they expand in terms of expansion and war. They were somehow lethargic. Okay. So when this issue came, then they have to also mobilize and then fight the Ashantis. Unfortunately, the Ashanti army was too powerful. They always engaged in war. So they were able to come to the coast and defeat the Fanti in 1806 and 1807. But that fight was not enough if you have not conquered a very critical town at the time, which was Anomabu, where most of the majority, because Anomabu alone at that time could contribute about 15,000 to 20,000 army. So when you get Anomabu, then you have direct access to the heart of the Fanti. So that is why the whole fight ended at Anomabu in 1807. And then King Osei, what the name is King Osei, who came to the coast, then plunged this Impomponcio sword and plunged it into the sea, and then declared that he has conquered the ocean. And then he asked that which animal in the sea is the warrior, and they told him Bonso, whale. And then he said, he, from now onwards, he is the Bonso because he has been able to defeat the sea and conquer the people. So his name, instead of being called Osiesibe, okay, King Osiesibe, now he turned to Osetutu Kwamina Bonso or Ose Bonso. That's how he came by that appellation. Okay. So that is the first attempt that the Ashantis made. So between that time, in the Fantis, unlike other people, are rebellious. When Ashantis go to other people and conquer them, they put down a sort of resident people or ambassadors who take care of them. But for the Fantis, they were not even allowed this. So the Ashanti ambassador, who was called Achampon, was placed at Elmina, because Elmina historically had not been part of the Fanti state. And so they have always been, yes, they were under the Dutch territory. So, and they were also friends of the Ashantis. So whenever the Ashanti want to attack the Fanti, they always pass through Elmina. With the Elmina access, it is easy to enter the Fanti territory. So as the very day the Fantis were defeated, after the Ashantis have left, the Fantis mobilized and fought 2 wars. One against Elmina and another one against the Accra people. And in this war, because they were angry that we are all on the coast, how can you allow yourself to allow the enemy to come through your spaces to attack us? So the Fantis had war with Elmina, and luckily for the Elmina people, the Dutch supported them and they were able to repel the Fantis back. And then in Accra, the same thing happened. So that was how the first sort of Ashanti incursion occurred. Thereafter, the Fantis from 1807 to 1812, they rebelled, and Ashantis have to come back again and fight them and put them in their position. Then in 1815, the Fantis rebelled again, and they had to. So, and then the British realizing what was happening, because something very untoward happened by the British governor at the time, Touraine. When the Ashantis came to fight the Fantis, and then the people of Anumabo, about 2,000 of them, fled and went to hide in the fort. The Asantehene demanded that they should bring the people out, so that he go and use them, for he had really incurred losses fighting. So he need his war indemnity. In those days, when you go to war and you win, you have to get something to pay for it. And what happened was that, because those things were not coming, 2 things happened at Anumabo. A lot of graves of prominent people who have been buried with gold were desecrated. For instance, Apia Yonyo passed through, an Ashanti warrior passed through Ejumako and the Fanti communities, burning down communities and looting everything from the communities and sending them to Ashanti. Again, at the same Anumabo, the king demanded with Touraine, and they brought the 2,000 prisoners from the castle, and they shared it. Touraine took 1,000, Asantehene took 1,000, and they sold them into slavery at the time. So these were some of the things that happened, and this undergirded the Fantis rebellion, that this is not the way things are done. So they continue to rebel against Ashanti power until the British had the company of merchants. At that time, it was not the British government. The crown itself was not directly involved in the ruling. It was the company of merchants who were trading on the coast, and they had their leader, which they called the governor. So when that thing was been, at that time, it was Governor Hope Smith, who was married to a Fanti woman called Fanny Smith. And Asantehene Osebunsu has always accused Governor Hope Smith for being the one who has always encouraged the Fantis to rebel against him, because the wife is a Fanti.
We'll take a quick break at this point. When we come back, we will continue and then dovetail into how the whole battle of Nsamankow took place. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Ago. All right, welcome back. And we've been enjoying, some historical antecedents to the Battle of Nsamankow. We're going to find out how all this then went down.
So as a result of these incidents that were affecting the Fantis, and they being also in relationship with the British, they sent Governor Sir Charles McCarthy, who was then from in Sierra Leone. They brought him here. And after studying the terrain, he realized that the Fantis need help. So he mobilized the Fanti groups as energizing them to fight against the Asante. So he came out with about 300, what we call the African Corps, which they have, were the British troops. The whites among them were not even about getting to 200.
I see.
The rest were Africans who have been recruited into African that troops. And then there was also a Gold Coast rifle group, which the Africans themselves have set at Anamabu and Cape Coast. So he mobilized them and then decided to take an offensive that the Ashantis must be repelled back to where they are instead of being dominating the Fanti
land.
So what happened was that in 1823, he decided to make an incursion into the territories of the Asantes. Unfortunately, the person that McCarthy trusted was Sam Canterbury, who was a slave trader from Anamabo and a direct good friend of Asante Hene. So Canterbury leaked the moves by the British to go and lead the Fanti group to go and fight. So before McCarthy himself will say Jack, the information has been given to the Ashantis and they have mobilized on the to come and fight them. So when they reach, McCarthy made a lot of tactical mistakes. One of them was that you do not have the full complement of any white army in that war. The statistics by both Margaret, Mary McCarthy, and then Carl Randolph shows that the British themselves were not even up to 200. The white people. Anamabu supplied 2,000. Cape Coast supply about 1,005. Mankesim supply about 1,000. The Accra supply about 1,005. Some of the Fanti communities even refused, like Ejumako and Esikuma, all refused to even get involved in the war because the Ejumako was the collector of taxes. And when you collect the tributary taxes, he gives to Esikuma who sent it directly to the masses. So these people have become compromised as Fantis. So they even refused to be part of it. So the number of people the Fantis could wait was not even up to 20,000 to go and face one bulk of an Ashanti army coming to fight, comprising 40,000. And you could just imagine this small number, which is not even up to 20,000, going to face the Ashanti army. And then Samuel Canterbury led, when they reached the Bonsas, Samuel Canterbury led McCarthy into a place that is where the Ashantis have encamped. Not knowing the Ashantis were hiding in the bush. So as soon as they reached there, they started shooting them and killing all the people. So it was an ambush? It was an ambush. So this ambush killed a lot of the British. So there were some people who were also in it to fight on the side of the Fanti because they are all allies. Started saying, so we are fighting against ghosts because you don't see where the people are.
Guerrilla warfare.
Because they have laid them ambush through the trap of Samuel Canterbury, who was a slave trader, a Fanti who was involved with the Asante. So this created a very serious issue. So even after the war, Canterbury was even sent into exile and he poisoned himself in the ship for his role in that issue. So this shows you how the Ashantis really used their tactical moves and their superior army number to overcome the southern allies of the British at the time to fight the war. And so Sir Charles McCarthy lost his life in that battle. And as a result, because of what happened, the war became Nsamankow War. Now people have argued whether this is Anglo-Ashanti War. And this is the contestation many people have argued. How can about 150 white people, supported by over 20,000 southern Gold
Coasters, yeah.
Go to fight and you call it the British Ashanti War. There was no British Ashanti War.
Yeah.
It was the British allied with the Southern group that fought against the Ashanti.
In many senses, it's even more of a Gold Coast Ashanti War. As opposed to even a British Ashanti War.
Yes.
A Gold Coast Ashanti War.
Yes, it is not said so because at that time the Gold Coast colony had not been founded.
Okay.
Man, you have not reached bond of 1844. Let alone go to 1876 when the Gold Coast became a territory.
Okay.
So it is all
the
about
Fanti Allies and Fanti territories.
The Fanti Allies and then other people on the Southern Gold Coast. So that was how the war was. Because you can't tell me 300 Ashantis will go and fight, British will go and fight 40,000 and over. That is what I'm saying. One block of a commanding block of an Ashanti army, total about 40,000.
Yeah.
And another group alone. So if you get the full complement of them coming together, then you know that you have lost the battle. So in this war, through the ambush, McCarthy lost his life, and Major Chilson had to, and Lane have to retreat with the rest of the army back to the coast. And so Ashanti continued to invade the southern Gold Coast, tried many attempts to even enter Cape Coast, but Cape Coast repulsed them, and then they returned back.
Okay.
And this was as a result because the king got sick. Okay, King Osiesibe got sick. So he had to return, and as on his return, he died on the way. And then the power then moved from Osiesibe to Oseyawakoto around that time. So when this vacuum was created, Oseyakoto then feel that because the Fantis realized and other Gold Coast territories that were under the power of Asante begin to rebel because they've heard of the information of the death of the Asante Hene. So Oseyawakoto promised that he will come and punish the coastal people, and he will chase them and put them into the belly of a shad fish. And he shad in a Akan name, it means enkamfra. It's a small fish. When you are on the beach and you want to use any net, you can catch them. Just when the waves are breaking, you can get them. So he said he will kill all the people who have rebelled and put them in the stomach of a shark. So he made an oath. That is what you say, or can't tempt. Or can't tempt. So he made an oath that when he reached there, he will conquer the coast. And that led to the battle that was fought at Dodowa. The Dodowa fight. So in that fight, which took place in 1826, known as the Battle of Akatamanso, for the first time, all the Gold Coast people who were under the suzerainty of Ashanti were eager for once and for all fight against Ashantis to get their independence. The Equiapim were eager because they were also under the power of Ashanti. The Ga people who have been under the suzerainty of Ashanti for a very long time were eager. So for the Ga people, it was even a battle of life and death for them. As for the Fantis, they were not in, they were a bit like Adesika, but they also took serious interest in the war because of the suffering they've suffered from 1807 invasion and the losses that had occurred to them. As a result, the war then really occurred in 1826, where the British brought some soldiers from, for the first time, brought some African soldiers or warriors from the Shebro in Salarion, some from also Hausa Fulani warriors also from Nigeria. And they brought them to help them. And the British were about getting to about, they were not even up to 5,000 or 1,500 in that war. So the Southern Gold Coast states constituted the bulk of the army. And they fought that war at Dodua. And then for the first time, they defeated Ashanti terribly, and then they fled, leaving most of their properties, which most of the Akan chiefs had. And because that war was fought in Dodua, and then King Oseyakoto had boasted or made an oath that he will conquer them and put them in the belly of a shad. And he had lost the war. The people said, "Why can't Tamuso went to me?" So Akatamanso, you have made an oath, but you couldn't
achieve it. Fulfill it. Okay.
That is why the place became Akatamanso.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we've been speaking with historian Kweku Darko Ankrah, and this is the first episode of the Heritage Month on Air series on Citi TV as well as 97.3 Citi FM. We want to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Miss Cookie Spices. No peeling, no blending, just scoop and cook. Well, my name is David Kweku Sechi. I want to say a big thank you also to Carrie Strengths for this beautiful outfit that I have here. We'll be back on another episode of the Heritage Month on Air series. Ago.